Good people, welcome to the Prodigious Leadership Podcast. This is gonna be the best one by far. I'm joined by the general. I'm joined by the legend, the good sir. I'm so honored to be here with him. I'm actually so honored to meet him. What a great man of God. And sir, I'm just so appreciative. I was just letting him know at the beginning of the interview as we were chatting about how much of his teachings have made a great impact in my life. And there's actually one particular one that I'm going to be unpacking and speaking about today. I'm sure you'll probably even be shocked that that's the one that actually shifted just my perspective on life. But good sir, welcome Dr. R.C. Blakes on the Prodigious Leadership Podcast. Please greet our viewers and let us know where you're tuning in from.
Well, it is absolutely my honor to be here with you today to see the next generation of leaders emerging, so forcefully, so boldly, and so wisely is an amazing honor for me to witness. I'm tuning in from the United States of America, and I'm presently in New Orleans, Louisiana. I live between Louisiana and Texas, and I'm presently at my New Orleans house in the United States of America. And it's a joy to be here with you today. I wish I were in South Africa, though. That's like my favorite place on the planet right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I know when you were here, you really loved your stay, and I'm sure you were even surprised to see how many people actually follow you from
Oh,
SA because you bumped into people everywhere.
everywhere. I thought I was going to be able to just be incognito and just kind of, you know, blend in. But everywhere I went, it was almost worse than it would be if I were in the States. I think people in the
Wow,
States recognize me and they don't really say anything. But
wow.
in South Africa, I was just like inundated with love, and it left an unbelievable impression upon me. It humbled me, actually.
Wow, wow. Yeah, man, this is your home. I think one of the primary reasons why through the Prodigious Leadership Podcast I connect leaders from all over the world is I remember someone asking me that question. They once asked me, why don't I focus solely on leaders from my country? And I said this was my response to them. I was saying personal leadership trumps location. So if we,
Correct.
yeah, personal leadership trumps location. Personal leadership is principle based. And I'm going to quote you. This is something you've said before that kings are not a king. Kings are not identified by power, but they are identified by discipline. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
something that you've said before. And that discipline is simply a principle. So you said in the beginning in your greeting that it's good to see young leaders emerge. And one thing I admire about you is you've always been real about building the next generation. I know you just moved into a new sanctuary, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a new sanctuary in your ministry. And you were in one of your recent teachings, you were speaking about how you see the young people there just so involved. Please speak to us about how the current generation can develop a heart to pour into the next generation.
Well, I think the current generation has to understand that there are seasons and times. There was a time and a season when I was 20 years old. Now I'm 58 years old. When I was 20 years old, my vision was massive. My energy was endless. Now I'm 58 years old.
Mhm.
And so my vision is a little more subdued.
Mm.
And there's a reason that God allows us to go through these seasons. It's because young men are for war, old men are for counsel. Old men dream dreams, young men see visions. Visionaries are those that are empowered to take action.
Mm.
I think my generation and older has to understand that the baton is designed to be passed. If you
Mm.
try to run the race, the whole race with the baton in your hand, everybody loses.
Mm.
There's a season for me to run, and then there's a season for me to make an effective pass to the next generation,
Mm.
and then watch you take it further. And then at the end, we all celebrate in victory.
Mm,
So this is not a me, my thing. This is corporate. This is legacy.
mm,
You know, what you're going to accomplish is my accomplishing that.
mm-hmm.
What I'm accomplishing is my late father's accomplishments. There's
That's
no divide between the generations, but we have to understand that, and we have to divorce ourselves from the selfishness and the self-centeredness and the individual concepts, and understand that this is corporate and this is legacy.
Understand that this is corporate and this is legacy. I love how you said the baton is designed to be handed over,
Correct.
which is something that is very essential. And I think once the current generation of leaders understand that, that's actually one of the greatest challenges that we have in my country in particular today. We have leaders who want to die with their positions, with their titles,
Correct.
with their postures.
Correct.
And we heard the late Dr. Miles Monroe say this multiple times, that you've got to work yourself out of the job. And
Correct.
I want to ask you a question, sir, and I'm really interested in hearing your answer because, in particular, you've had a spiritual father, which was your father, the legend, Mr. Blakes, and
Correct.
and you speak so dearly of him. When I hear you speak about your father, it just always reminds me of how I view my father. And I want to ask you a question: how then do we draw the line between having the next generation accountable to the older generation for counsel, for oversight, but at the very same time being one with being the visionaries and taking action and making our own mistakes? Because I'm sure you've witnessed this. You've been in
Correct.
ministry for years. There are people who all in the name of inverted commas counsel want to control the next generation, or they want to control your way of
Correct.
doing ministry. How do we draw a fine line
Correct.
between that?
Well, and that's a great question. The Bible. There's a powerful text where the Bible talks about train up a child in the way he should go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we miss a great revelation in that, in just the wording of that text. Train means more than just to teach. If I'm going to train you, I'm going to instruct you, but then I'm going to give you the opportunity to practice. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to make error and mistakes under my oversight. Train up a child in the way he should go, meaning what? Every individual has a divine direction, a divine fingerprint that God has given to that individual. And the parent or the leader or the spiritual father, whatever you want to call it, has to be sensitive to that particular individual's blueprint, fingerprint, DNA. I think what has to happen, because, today we say, my generation says, well, your generation is just rebellious. And, it's kind of easy to buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really pull off the scales and you look at how all branches of leadership have seemed to work, what has gone on is my generation of leaders has really tried to mold you guys into who we are. We've tried to make models of ourselves out of you, rather than allowing you to develop, evolve into what God has created you to be organically. So what seems like rebellion towards my generation is not really rebellion towards us, as much as it is the uniqueness, the innate plan of God that's within your generation, fighting to be seen, fighting to be heard. Now, the problem there is, because you have this warfare between two generations, my generation misses the Elijah effect. And what was that? Elisha was given to Elijah to bring youth and strength, while Elijah was given to Elisha to bring wisdom and counsel, to save him time and steps. So because this is broken down, your generation is missing our wisdom. Our generation is missing your energy. And so where we would have had legacy, we're dying off without legacy.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys should be at point Z, you're struggling to get to G because you never had the. So I blame this disconnection on my generation because we failed to properly mentor you. We've not really welcomed you. We've taken these positions personally. We find our identity in what we do,
Mm.
and we've taken ownership of what belongs to God. And rather than understanding that God has given this role to me for a season and a time, and I must look for the next generation of leaders, welcome them in, train them, give them the opportunity to make all of the mistakes I made, correct them in love, but allow them to develop, in their own unique way.
Mm.
It's when my generation can take the responsibility to really reach back and open the door and spread the table and say to your generation, come and sit. We want to prepare you for the journey ahead.
Mm.
I really thank God that he gave me, I suppose, through the example of my father, um, a strong concept of succession. And
Mm-hmm.
so I understand that the thing has to live beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that at 58 years old, some say, okay, well, that's the prime of life. That's the prime of leadership. And maybe it is,
Mm-hmm.
but it is also the time where I must begin to identify, really 50 years old. I think a man should start searching for his successor.
Yeah.
I must identify successors, welcome them in, give them everything I have,
Mm.
teach them how to use what God has uniquely given them, and then be alive to sit on the sideline and watch you finish the race.
Mm.
So, I mean, I know that's a long Baptist preacher answer, but
I
those are
love
my
it.
thoughts around that.
Yeah, I love it. I love how you said identify the successor, right? The successor. I said that correctly, right? The successor.
You did.
And sit on the sideline. So what I know you went Baptist preacher on me, so let me go a bit. So watch this. So you said sit on the sideline, which means that I have to be alive to witness you putting into practice that which I've taught,
Correct.
which means I have to give you the opportunity as the next generation to start implementing that which I've taught you while I'm still around, while I still even
Correct.
have certain things that I want to put into practice as the one who's teaching
Correct.
and handing the baton over. And I love that, sir. Setting an example. We have a real detrimental issue in our country whereby now, because young people have identified and observed that the older generation are not taking them in and giving them a seat at the table and that counsel and advisory, we rebel as a result of it, and we want to formulate our own path without the wisdom. But we've got the energy, we've got the drive, and you can see it substantially with the results. Recently a political party emerged. It's not even a decade year old, but it's great and it's drawing a lot of young people. But you can
Mm.
see that there are loopholes in there. What can you say to a young person, or not even just a young person, a millennial, anybody who's watching who wants to go and serve the country or their country where governmental construct or politics is concerned?
I would say that your zeal is necessary. Your strength, your energy, all of these things are absolutely mandatory. Your zeal, your strength, your energy are the things that older guys like me no longer possess.
Mm.
And so the youth and the zeal of young people is absolutely mandatory.
Mm.
I would pause
Okay.
and I would make certain that I took the time as a young person with ambitions and vision and dreams to go into politics or whatever. I would pause, I would celebrate the zeal and what have you, but I would pause and I would take the time to locate the proper mentors.
Okay.
Now, now sometimes it's harder to find these mentors in person, But the way God has so constructed the world in this era,
Mm,
you can literally take your phone and sit for an hour or two and find
mm.
mentors.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like God has broken down the necessity of the one-on-one all the time. Is it ideal? Of course it is. If you can walk with a person day in and day out, that's ideal. But you can still get the job done. I would consume as much wisdom and mentorship from books, from the internet, from in person, maybe go and pay to sit and under someone who's already done it, just pay to sit there and to be a part of that. I would consume all of the wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and I would proceed slowly and cautiously, because one of the mistakes I made in my younger leadership,
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed to have had a father who allowed me the opportunity to lead while he was living.
Mm,
He allowed me the opportunity to make mistakes while he was alive. He corrected me in love, but he never tried to squeeze me into his mold. He allowed me to develop into who I ultimately became. But one of the mistakes I made was that I would jump out on the zeal
mm,
before I had the knowledge.
mm,
And so I found myself jumping out doing things that I had to rewind and undo because the knowledge was lagging behind the energy.
mm,
And so if I could speak to the younger version of me, I would say, yeah, feel that zeal, celebrate that zeal, but make certain that the knowledge is out ahead of the zeal.
mm,
Ask the questions and make certain of your steps before you take, because it'll save you a lot of time. So it is your era, it is your time. You're not mistaken in that. It's not a demon spirit talking to you. That's not just the spirit of rebellion.
mm.
That is the Spirit of God calling you for such a time as this. But make certain that you get the proper mentorship as you begin to move out. Make certain that the knowledge goes before the energy.
Wow. The knowledge goes before the energy so that the energy could be directed within proper, substantial and significant targets.
Correct.
Looking at and on the basis of your life, what would you say are the most essential relationships that a leader can have? You've already established the first, which is mentorship. And what would you say are the other relationships that will serve as protection, as upliftment, as purpose effective for a leader to have in their lives?
A leader must have mentors. You need a mentor in your money. You need a mentor if you're a speaker. You need a mentor for speaking. You know, various mentors for various disciplines. A leader must have a spiritual voice that speaks to him.
Okay.
There has to be someone that um, is constantly on board to reconnect the leader to his or her God consciousness. I think another major relationship would be family, whatever that looks like for you as an individual. You know, for man, most cases it would be his wife. I would not suggest that a young man aspire to great heights of leadership without trying to identify the woman that God has for his life, because it leaves too many loose ends for enemies to subjugate you or unravel what God is doing.
Really?
I think you got to have, I really do believe that. Sound like you want to go in deep on that.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I want to go deeper in it, sir, because I feel like somebody will listen to that and just move past it. I want you to lean in on that one because I feel like you're even speaking to me.
Yeah. Well, what is the undoing of most men? King Lemuel in the Bible, his mother's instruction to him was not to give his strength to women, to random women. In other words, don't have a loose, undisciplined sexual lifestyle. That's
Mm,
not the ways of kings, because the king ultimately has to be the discerner and the judge of the kingdom
decision maker.
and the decision maker. Kings cannot give their strength loosely sexually? What unravels men internationally?
Man, you've seen this.
Inappropriate relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a man like any other, I guess, heterosexual male is in the world. But my wife has been like a foundation in the sustainability and the stability and the consistency of my brand, so to speak. It's
Wow.
because that area of my life has been solid for nearly 30 years.
Wow.
You know, no scandals, no need of spoil. The Bible says the virtuous woman would do for her husband. No need for him to mess up when he has those personal relationships right. When a man has great leadership responsibility, and especially when he or she accomplishes great things, and the private life is shaky,
Mm-hmm.
the world can misconstrue things that may even be innocent.
Mm.
But in a lot of cases, you leave the doors open for unnecessary temptation to come in and to pull you into things that will undo what you've been working on for the last decade.
Mm.
And so I say to all leaders, make certain that you get your private personal life secure. Find the person that God has for you, and prove to be disciplined in that area. I think every leader needs that relationship. You need mentors, you need pastors, whatever you guys may call it, spiritual. And then you need a very small circle of
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Mm-hmm.
A very small circle. You have different levels of friends. Your inner circle needs to be small and proven,
Wow.
because yeah, it
Proven.
needs to be small and proven. Now
Mm.
you have the inner circle, then you have the little outer band where you have associates and people that you know and maybe you're close to on some level, but your inner circle are people that are proven, people who know the whole truth and nothing but the truth and have been proven
Mm.
to hold you down or to have your back, so to speak.
Yeah.
Identify those people. Don't be a leader that just lets everybody in. If I come to your home right now,
Mm-hmm.
if I come and visit at your home, as much respect as you may have for me, well, unless you're just giving me a tour of the house, we're not going to go sit back in your bedroom or your bathroom.
Yeah.
Now, if your mother or your father comes, they have access to all of that
Yeah.
because that's a different circle. Well, sometimes as leaders, we don't know the different levels of access to give people.
Mm.
And we undo ourselves by um, welcoming our own traitors into
Wow.
our bedrooms,
Mm.
giving them the code to the safe, giving them the access to the bank accounts. Find a small circle of friends.
Mm.
And that's not always going to necessarily be people that you've known all of your life, because
Yeah.
Jesus knew his community all of his life. When he went back with the wisdom he had, they got offended with him
Mm.
because he had such wisdom and came from among them. But God will reveal and God will give you the people that are to walk in that wise with you. So those are a few things that I would say: relationships that you got to have, close circle of friends, mentors, your personal relationship, whatever that looks like, and some spiritual accountability.
Close relationship, personal relationship, and spiritual accountability, including the mentorship as well. I love this because as we're listening from a point of view of you being at a place in your life where my dad would call the significant stage. There's the achieving stage, there's the becoming stage of life, and then there's the significant stage. And even in the beginning of the interview, you said that there are certain things that you just can't do now, and not because of inability, but because of constructiveness. It's not constructive
Correct.
yeah, for you to do certain things now, because you're in a place now where you're not even figuring, where you're deliberately, intentionally pursuing significance. Standing from the place of significance in your life, sir, and looking back either 10 years or 20 years, looking back at different stages of your life. I know this question is vast and there are multiple responses, but whatever comes to your heart now, what would you do differently that you feel like would have set you up differently in your significant stage now?
Mm. Looking back, how many years?
10 years.
10 years. What could I have done 10 years ago that would have set me up at even a greater place today? Um, Taking the time to fully communicate to those that worked alongside me.
Mm.
I think I made a mistake, like a lot of leaders make, and that is running with what God had put in my heart, God giving me people who were eager to assist.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wasn't patient enough all the time to take the time to communicate the vision and to give them the assignments to best assist me.
Wow.
And so it's almost kind of like what I was warning young people of relative to the zeal going out in front of the knowledge. When a leader moves ahead of instructing those that are given to him to assist, many times he has to come back and revisit. I would have taken the time, I would have spent more time building the leaders around me,
Wow.
because I've discovered that I was never brought into the world to raise up followers. I was brought to raise leaders. And if you're going to raise leaders, you're going to have to take the time to instruct and mentor and teach. And sometimes that's going to feel like you're losing time, but you're not really losing time. You're multiplying yourself and you're
Mm.
multiplying your efforts.
Okay.
And so slow it down. Don't be impatient with those on your team or those that God gives you. Slow it down. Be intentional about pouring everything you have
Mm-hmm.
into those that God has given you to assist. And it's the effect of one man rowing a boat versus 20 men rowing a boat. If you
Mm.
take the time to build the oars and teach everybody how to properly move together,
Mm-hmm.
wow, it's going to be. So that would be one thing that I would say from a decade ago that's come clearer to me at this point, if I had taken that time to do that.
Love it, sir. As we're about to wrap up, I think the last question that I'd like to pose to you is how would you like to finish?
Mm, how would I like to finish? Um, I want to finish in a way that I am trying to find the right word, duplicated. I want to duplicate myself
Mm,
in various forms
mm,
globally.
mm,
I want the principles that I preach and teach. I want my life. I want the lessons of my life, the mistakes I've made, the victories I've won to be implanted in generations to come. Like you just mentioned, Miles Monroe, his name is still alive in the earth,
he's still alive in the earth. Yeah,
still alive in the earth.
man.
How many leaders die and 2 years later, nobody even knows that they ever existed? I want to see what God has put in my heart duplicated. I heard TD Jakes say something one day. He said, when I die, I want people to cry. So many people say, I don't want anybody to cry. I want the world to miss me. I
Mm,
want I want to so live my life that the world will cry when I die. But
mm,
more importantly than that, I want the things that I've spent my life teaching to be things that will be uttered by a 20-year-old man.
Mm.
R.C. Blakes said before
Yeah.
he died,
Yeah.
as you just did with Dr. Miles Monroe, that's how I want to finish, man. I want to finish watching the next generation winning.
Mm.
And I want to finish supporting the next generation like I've always needed to be supported. And yeah, that's how I want to finish. I hope that's a good answer.
It's a phenomenal answer, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to kick it with us today. Appreciate you so much, sir. Got a lot of love for you. May the Lord bless you.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy being with you.